This week on Worldview, India prepares to put 26/11 conspirator Tahawwur Hussain Rana on trial for the Mumbai terror attacks after the US extradited him. 17 years later, is justice for the victims of one of India's deadliest terror strikes a little bit closer, and what still needs to be done. Hello, I'm Suhasini Heather. Welcome to Worldview at the Hindu. Up ahead, we'll also look at New Delhi's counter-terror diplomacy over these decades, an important part. But first, Tahawwur Rana, one of the men wanted for planning the 26/11 Mumbai attacks, an American and Canadian citizen of Pakistani origin, was extradited to India this week. The National Investigation Agency that had put Tahawwur Rana on the 2011 charge sheet as an accomplice, as a co-conspirator of David Headley, escorted him to Delhi via a special flight where a special court gave them custody. Now, Rana's trial for the attacks in which 166 people died, 238 were wounded, is very important for a number of reasons. To begin with, Rana is the second suspect to face an in-person trial for the 26/11 attacks. Remember, the first was Ajmal Kasab, the lone surviving terrorist. After those attacks, he was hanged in 2012. Second, Rana is a critical link in the conspiracy behind the attacks, the connection to the planning of the attacks in Pakistan. The third, that Rana was convicted by a US court for his links to the Lashkar-e-Toiba, as well as to planning an attack on a newspaper in Denmark. But he was acquitted in the Mumbai attacks case. So this would be the first time he would face a punishment for it. Fourth, Rana formerly worked in the Pakistani military as a doctor before leaving for Canada in 1997. Investigators will be seeking those links that he retained to the military establishment, the ISI as well, even though he and Pakistan have disclaimed him. Now, Rana's role in the attacks, which will be laid out in the prosecution's case, included a number of areas. To begin with, as a childhood friend who reconnected with Headley in the US, and they had been at a military academy in Pakistan together. 64-year-old Rana housed and funded Headley, helped him get tickets, visas, a fake ID for India, discussed plans and logistics for the 26/11 attacks, as well as once more he allowed or helped Headley to go to India to plan the next round of attacks in 2009. Rana is believed to have coordinated with a figure in Pakistan called Major Iqbal. Rana and his wife also traveled to India just days before the attacks, and this, investigators will try to linked to him trying to assist with the planning. So let's talk a little bit about India's counter-diplomacy. In the aftermath of those attacks, certainly the world sat up and paid attention to India's consistent issue with terrorism emanating from Pakistan. Given that 45 of those killed were foreign citizens, including from the US, France, Israel, Germany, Australia, Canada, Italy, Singapore, India has been able to build stronger ties and counter-terror cooperation. So diplomacy has really worked over there. The US in particular, that had earlier sidelined India's concerns, has been actually helping much more, especially with the banning of the Lashkar-e-Toiba and its chief Hafiz Saeed at the UN in 2008. Although China blocked India's efforts on a number of terror listings at the UN Security Council before relenting, India has been able to successfully pursue UNSC sanctions against at least 10 of the Lashkar-e-Toiba's commanders, including the Chief Hafiz Saeed, Operations Chief Zakiur Rahman Lakhvi, Financier Mohammad Ashraf in 2008 and 2009, and many more subsequently. However, it has failed to make headway on the adoption of a comprehensive convention on international terrorism, CCIT, that it had first proposed in 1997 at the UN. So that continues. India then became a member of the Financial Action Task Force in 2012. It lobbied to keep Pakistan on the FATF's watch list, first from 2012 to 2015, and then from 2018 to 2022. Pakistan was also on that watch list for about a year between 2008 and 2009. And this has subsequently forced Pakistan to crack down on funding for anti-India terror groups. Fifth, during cross-border operations by the Indian Army in 2016, Uri, and missile strikes by the Indian Air Force in 2019 after the Pulwama terror attacks on security forces, India was able to ensure global support for its actions. Meanwhile, remember, no civilian hostage terror attack in the style and scale of the Mumbai attacks has been attempted in India since 2008. Let's turn then to Pakistan. And it's clear that India hasn't made much headway with Pakistan because of the clear links between anti-India terror groups and the Pakistani military. Remember, this is a part of Pakistan's policy over the years. They claimed it was about Kashmir, but eventually the Mumbai attacks showed that this was really about terror groups. However, it should not be forgotten that in the initial days after the attacks, Pakistan's Federal Investigation Agency, or the FIA, did carry out an investigation. In fact, all that it pieced through has helped India in putting its case together as well. So let's just quickly look at what the Pakistani FIA has been able to prove and where the evidence actually was put together. First, the FIA proved that Ajmal Kasab was a Pakistani national, so a direct live link there, that he joined the band Lashkar-e-Toiba in Pakistan, that he was trained at a training camp near Thatta in Sindh, where all that group of 10 terrorists were equipped and then launched on a boat by sea. The FIA found the casings of the explosive devices that were used in Mumbai. They were found at the training camp, and then they were matched. The fishing trawler that was used by the terrorists for then hijacking an Indian trawler, in which they then sailed to Mumbai, was actually brought back to the harbor in Karachi. It was painted and concealed. That has been recovered by the FIA. The FIA also was able to follow the money trail. Look at this, from the boat engine, a patent number. The investigators traced the import from Japan to Lahore and then to a Karachi sports shop from where Lashkar-e-Toiba operative bought it. Finally, the FIA found the ops room in Karachi from where the operation was directed, people believed to be including Hafiz Saeed and Zakir Rahman Lakvi, actually speaking to the terrorists, directing them to kill more people in Mumbai. Pakistan also arrested and put on trial a few Lashkar-e-Toiba operatives, but that has never been pursued. And in fact, it's been actively blocked by those higher up the chain. But remember, all that I just told you in terms of the evidence has been put together by the FIA's Director General at the time, Tariq Khosa. He wrote a column which has these listed there in the Dawn newspaper of Pakistan. And you can see the links below and read through how much evidence has been gathered linking the Lashkar-e-Toiba. Of course, there is more. There is a conspiracy. With Rana now in Indian custody, what remains in terms of justice for the 2611 victims? And there are really 2 points. The mastermind, Hafiz Saeed, as well as those that ran that operation. They've been identified, arrested at different times. They need to face trial either in Pakistan or be extradited to India. In fact, the NIA has actually named 7 of them in its charge sheet against Headley and Rana. The second part is that the US must explain why it entered into a plea bargain deal with Headley. He was believed to be an agent for the Drug Enforcement Agency in the US, but he was also working with the ISI and the LET. And that plea deal that the US signed gave him immunity from both execution as well as extradition. In fact, Home Secretary G.K. Pillai, who led the investigations, told The Hindu in an interview to my colleague Vijeta Singh that the US had acted, quote, in bad faith. You can watch that interview, and in fact, at the link given below, you can read that entire plea deal that the US Department of Justice gave. So what's Worldview's take? Rana's extradition to India is an important step, a significant one in India's quest for justice for victims of the 2611 attacks. It's also a significant achievement for investigators who pursued it. But then it is a testament to Indian counter-terror diplomacy that really changed the way the world looked at cross-border terrorism and India's particular concerns with Pakistan. It's hoped that the trial will now put the spotlight on Pakistan once again to conclude this case and bring the masterminds of the attack to trial. I do have a whole bunch of Worldview reading recommendations, but I'm going to limit myself to a few because I've spoken about many of those in the past. The first is The Siege, The Attack of the Taj. This is by Adrian Levy and Kathy Scott Clark, who have written again and again about the issues surrounding cross-border terrorism for India. Then there's Mumbai 2611, A Day of Infamy by B. Raman, worth reading about the conspiracies involved and where India's own security forces failed. The third on diplomacy, called Anger Management, the troubled diplomatic relationship between India and Pakistan. This is by a former High Commissioner there, Ajay Bisaria. There's the Talibanization of Pakistan from 9/11 to 26/11. This is by a Pakistani author called Amir Mir and has a very specific chapter on 2611 you must read. And the fifth I've spoken about before. It's called Inside Al-Qaeda and Taliban by Sayyid Salim Shehzad, who actually writes about the possible Al-Qaeda link to shadowy characters like Ilyas Kashmiri, who have been named in the charge sheets. But that's all we have time for here on Worldview. Do join us again, like and subscribe to The Hindu's YouTube channel. From the team here, thanks for watching.